news. Barkley said last week on ESPN's Get Up, that's right here, our very own Get Up, that KD has yet to win a title as the quote-unquote bus driver of his team. KD, of course, clapped back. Here's the tweet. All this expletive is nasty. Another terrible analogy from a hating old head that can't accept that we making more bread than them. It's just timing. Chucky, don't hate the player. Barkley responded to KD during last night's Stanley Cup final.
The hockey analysts are like Melrose. These guys, they can criticize. They don't hear from his family.
Yeah,
you criticize the NBA.
Yeah, but they tweet about me. Hockey players just want to win. They don't sit around and tweet.
Yeah. JJ Redick and Tim Bontemps with me. JJ, Barkley was explicit in his original comment. He is holding KD to the highest possible standard. Do you have a problem with what Barkley said?
Other than our wonderful Ian Barron over there, people don't care about hockey, so that's probably why hockey players don't.
Careful. I once said on this network, that hockey is not one. There are three major sports, and I still haven't heard the end of it.
Yeah, I gotcha. Had a problem with what he said about KD not being a bus driver. As Tim Legler eloquently put it this morning, that bus was registered in Steph Curry's name, but during that finals run with KD, he was the bus driver. If you look at 2017, 35 points a game, ridiculous shooting splits. 2018, 29 a game, 11 rebounds, 8 assists. His defense was spectacular on both sides of the ball. Like, he was the best player on the Warriors team.
Of course.
The big three with the Warriors, they would admit that as well. He was the bus driver. That's my issue. Now, is Kevin held to a different standard because of where he ranks in the echelon of great NBA players? Absolutely. That's part of the narrative, though, to me, not the legacy.
Tim, I don't get the bus driver thing. To me, really, to articulate it to me properly, it's that we already knew that Kevin Durant was one of the goodest players who ever lived. We were looking for greatness, right? Can you come through in a championship situation? And when you join a 73-win team that gets to the final possession the year before, what do you really prove? We already know you can really ball. Of course, you put any baller like that on that team, they're going to win a championship, right? Is it a bus driving issue or an issue of KD kind of cheat coding his way to a championship here?
I mean, look, people are going to say what they want to say, but I think JJ summed this up before, and he said this is about the narrative, right? Charles is playing his part. Charles is probably the best guy driving the narrative that we've ever seen in the NBA. It's why Inside the NBA has been such a successful show, right? So he's playing his part, and Kevin is playing his part. He loves to get on Twitter. He loves to clap back at these guys. He loves to have fun with this stuff. It's why he's such a compelling figure all the way around. As far as the bus driver thing, I was at the 2017 NBA Finals. That Cavs team was better than the year before. Kevin Durant was the best player on the court. He's the reason why the Warriors won that series.
He was the best player on the Warriors.
He was the best player on the court.
I totally disagree. I totally disagree. I think LeBron was the best player.
Well, that's fine. But at the end of the day, he's the reason they won those 2 championships, to JJ's point.
Yeah.
People can debate whether he was the bus driver or not. I don't really care. He won 2 Finals MVPs. He won 2 championships. He's one of the best players of all time. Everybody's playing their part here.
Tim points something out. Like, to me, what's interesting here is Barkley always marched to the beat of his own drum, right? So does KD. These guys are a lot alike in that kind of way. And I don't know, maybe like a lot of times when two people are alike, they'll go at it. Do you see anything like that here? You know, KD, there were kind of easy narratives, easy stories, told, the country kid, nice. And KD is a much more complicated guy than that. And I don't know, it's like he continues to entertain off the court as a result.
I guess the similarity is that they're both willing to be outspoken. I think Charles probably gets away with a lot more, and we write it off as entertainment, whereas KD clapping back somehow is an expose on his personality and his insecurities, which to me is just BS. If a guy wants to clap back, I have no issue with it. I mean, I sometimes clap back on Twitter too, and I consider myself to be a fairly secure person. I think that's the difference to me. Is we let Chuck get away with whatever, and it's written off as entertainment.
Well, when you say let him get away, there are some guys like, Marshawn Lynch can give you a one-word answer. We all eat it up. We love it. Somehow another guy tries that same thing. He can't pull it off. Barkley has always been able to pull it off.
And credit to him.
Yeah,
playing
for sure.
his part. That's all it comes down to.
No question. Let's play some with or without. JJ, I'm going to give you a name. You tell me if they're still going to be with their current team, or their current team will be with or without them next season, I should say. First up, will the Lakers be with or without Russell Westbrook this season?
I'm going to say with on this one. I expect him to opt in, and I don't think there's really a robust trade market for him right now. And they just got to figure out how to fill the roster around those three guys, get healthy, and make the adjustments they need with Darvin Ham.
Not a robust trade market is a very kind way of putting it.
Wait till the trade deadline, though, when he becomes an expiring contract. Next up, will the Wizards be with or without Bradley Beal this season?
Yeah, I'm going to say without on this one, and he may start the season with this team. I think if he doesn't sign this extension, it's a ticking clock for whenever he gets traded.
Okay, finally, will the Nets be with or without Kyrie Irving?
This one, to me, is as complicated as we can get, simply because he can opt in, and then if the Nets decide they want to go in a different route, they obviously would have to pull off a trade. I'm going to say with, though. I think he'll end up being back with the Nets. I don't think he'll be back on the Nets after signing a max extension. I think he'll be back on the Nets after opting in to his final year of his deal.
Tim Bontemps, if Kyrie leaves Brooklyn, which destination makes the most sense?
Well, to start out with, I agree with JJ. I think the most likely outcome is that Kyrie is back with the Nets, whether he opts in or they agree to some sort of a deal. I think the most sense for him is to be in Brooklyn. As far as where he could go, to me, the only logical outcome here is if he goes to the Knicks. Now, I know there's been talk about, well, he could go to the Clippers, he could go to the Lakers. Those teams will have to trade for him. It's going to be much more difficult for the Brooklyn Nets to come to a deal that makes sense for them to send Kyrie to either of those places. The Knicks, on the other hand, could get to the salary cap space necessary to sign Kyrie Irving without a ton of work. They'd have to move a couple deals. They could get it done. They could potentially sign him there. But I think this is going to end in some shape or form with Kyrie back in Brooklyn.
I actually want to come right back to you with this.
Sure.
So it seems to me if you're messing with Kyrie, negotiating with him, and KD is maybe whispering to some people in the media, I'm not happy about this, it seems to me that one possible explanation for why the Nets are behaving that way is KD is not as in control of the franchise as some might assume, or maybe losing influence in the franchise. Otherwise, why would you mess with Kyrie if KD feels like that's my guy, don't mess with him? Does KD have the kind of influence with the Nets still? Is it changing at all that many people assume?
Well, Kevin Durant signed a 4-year extension with the Nets last fall, right? By doing that, no matter how good you are, you cede some of the control you have over your team. Go back to when LeBron went to the Lakers, right? Year after year after year, he signed 1- or 2-year deals that allowed him to exert maximum pressure on the Cavs to do things to make the team better. If you sign a 4-year deal with the Lakers, all of a sudden you can kind of wait because LeBron's going to be there for 4 years. That's kind of the situation that Kevin is in now with the Nets. Obviously, he's still a hugely important player to them. He's going to have a ton of influence on the team. But look at everything that's gone on with Kyrie the past couple of years. I think it only makes sense that this isn't going to be a very simple A to B negotiation just because Kyrie's involved, frankly. You know, as JJ said, complication is the number one word that comes along with Kyrie. But no matter how good Kevin Durant is, when you sign that extension and you're going to be with the team for a while, you automatically cede some control back to them because they know you're going to be there.
It's a great point.
Yeah, how does this situation with Kyrie and the Nets, do you think, how might it affect KD's relationship with the team?
I don't know because I don't know. Again, it goes back to our priorities. You know, if Kevin Durant's goal is to win a championship, is his goal to play with his buddy? Is his goal to play with his buddy and win a championship? Where does he sort of put those three things?
I'm going to guess it was C. I'm going to guess he'd like to play with his buddy and win a championship.
I mean, wouldn't we all?
Yeah.
Wouldn't we all? Is that the realistic thing, though? If you're talking about a guy who's missed 52% of his games over the past 3 seasons, and some of that, by the way, was not because of injury. He opted out of the bubble. He took time off in that first year because Kevin Durant wasn't playing. He said, I don't want to play. I signed here to play with Kevin Durant. I'm just going to take some time off. Took a personal absence in year 2 where he missed 7 games in 11 days. There's all these different reasons why he's missed games. It hasn't just been because of bad luck like you see sometimes where people get the injury bug.
Kyrie's back with the Nets have a chance to win a championship. If for some reason we are wrong and Kyrie leaves, then I think the question of what happens with Kevin gets much more interesting because that team is not good enough to win a championship then, and then you wonder what's going to happen.
I totally agree with you. Look, the best case, this is why I say the best case scenario, if for him to opt in, just go to the Nets and say, I'm committed to this year.
Yep.
Let me show you. I'm going to play in 70 to 75 games. If Joe Harris is healthy and Ben Simmons is healthy, boom. All of a sudden, you are talking about an Eastern Conference championship contender.
And the one other thing about that, too, there's a ton of salary cap space next summer. There's basically none this summer. So if you come back, Kyrie Irving, you come back, you play well next year, you're going to have a ton more options, even if you do want to leave Brooklyn, than you do right now.
That's the thing about wanting their cake and wanting to eat it, too, is that when they're healthy and together, and that includes Joe Harris, and by the way, Ben Simmons, who hasn't even played yet, but we saw a little glimpse of it. Joe Harris is their best perimeter defender, and he could shoot the lights out, though he didn't shoot in the playoffs. If that guy's there, and Kyrie and KD are there, and you add Ben Simmons, sky's the limit. Of course they want their cake and eat it too. Coming up, Coop